and you wonder, what am I going to do? How am I going to, move forward? How can I support my family, myself? For me, I've been very fortunate. I've been able to continue in my chosen line of work.
I needed to figure out how to pay bills and how to continue to live in the lifestyle was somewhat the lifestyle that I had become accustomed.
There are stories behind the stage lights that, once you know them, will change the way you listen to music forever. Teddy Pendergrass is a name that once melted millions of hearts, but deep within that voice lies a labyrinth of conflict, betrayal, and tears. No one could have imagined that the life of an R&B star could resemble a tangled tragedy filled with accidents, distorted love, and a family torn apart by money. What you've heard about Teddy so far is just the surface. The story I'm about to tell is the whole truth, including the darkest corners of his life. Think carefully, because once you know, you'll never see Teddy Pendergrass the same way again. On March 26, 1950, in a rickety little house in the heart of Philadelphia's poor working-class South Philly neighborhood, a boy was born amid relentless hardship. Teddy Pendergrass, the name that would later shake the music world, was then just a scrawny kid, raised under the sole protection of his mother, Ida Geraldine Epps. His father, Jesse Pendergrass, had abandoned the family before Teddy could grasp what a complete family felt like. Philadelphia at that time was no easy place for a single black woman. In a harsh landscape, where the sound of car horns and dusty alleyways carried a constant sense of unease, Ida struggled to make ends meet, from cleaning houses to sewing for hire. She bore it all just to keep her son from going hungry. Teddy grew up shaped by his mother's resilience and quiet sacrifice, though he lacked a father's presence. Ida's love and strength became his anchor, yet deep in his heart, a silent void lingered, a faint crack that could never be filled, and music became the outlet for Teddy's early loneliness. At just 4 years old, he joined the local Baptist church choir one Sunday morning. His young but powerful voice left people speechless. From those first notes, gospel music coursed through his veins, becoming an inseparable part of who he was. The bold, soul-stirring hymns nurtured his ambition to rise above his circumstances for Teddy. Music wasn't just a passion, it was the only way to prove he wouldn't be crushed by poverty, isolation, or the judgmental stares and prejudice around him. His childhood was tied to a gritty Philadelphia. The 1950s and early 60s were riddled with dangers lurking in the city. Gangs, drugs, and violence seeped into the neighborhood where Teddy lived. On his way to school, he navigated dark alleys where a moment's carelessness could make a kid a victim of those with nothing left to lose. Music became an invisible shield, helping him stay grounded in an environment that could easily drag someone into a spiral of crime. At 10, Teddy started learning drums not on real instruments, but on empty cans behind the house. The raw, determined beats echoed every night, sparking curiosity and occasionally annoying the neighbors. Ida watched her son with a mix of pride and quiet worry. She knew the path of music was his only shot at escaping the harshness around them. By 1963, at just 13, Teddy began performing at small community events. Philadelphia, simmering with the rise of soul music, became the launching pad for talents like the Delphonics and the Stylistics. Teddy, with his rare, warm voice, quickly caught attention. He stood on makeshift stages, singing early gospel and soul tunes to skeptical crowds that soon found themselves captivated. A few promoters began noticing the teenager with a voice bigger than his years. As the stage lights flickered, Teddy realized that behind every round of applause lay a complex world where temptation and challenges walked hand in hand with fame. Offers of money and stardom started trickling in, laced with darker risks he couldn't yet foresee. 1968 marked his first major turning point. At 18, Teddy was invited to play drums for Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes during a gig at a small North Philly club. Tall, striking, with sharp features, he seized the chance like a ticket out of the precarious neighborhood he'd grown up in. But the group wasn't just a gateway to the spotlight. it was also the starting point for conflicts, disagreements, and his first clashes in the industry. Harold Melvin, the group's founder, was a controlling figure, overseeing everything from performances to finances. Teddy, though initially just the drummer, quickly stood out with his exceptional voice. Within a year, by the summer of 1969, he was promoted to lead singer, a move that felt inevitable. His emotive, commanding voice held audiences spellbound, and shows began drawing bigger crowds than ever. In 1972, a shining milestone arrived in Teddy's journey. That August, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes signed with Philadelphia International Records, the leading label shaping Philly soul, founded by Kenneth Gamble and Leon Huff. In October, their hit If You Don't Know Me By Now dropped and exploded on the charts. Teddy's soulful, heartfelt voice became the song's core. Fans, especially women, fell for him not just for his talent, but for his magnetic, powerful presence. However, that success deepened the cracks already simmering within the group. Harold Melvin couldn't hide his jealousy as the spotlight shifted to Teddy. Tensions over power and creative control escalated as Teddy began to recognize his own worth. He was no longer the poor kid behind the drums, he'd become the group's brightest star, even if some couldn't accept it. By September 1973, when The Love I Lost stormed the charts, Teddy Pendergrass's name had eclipsed Harold Melvin's in the public's mind. From a boy raised in South Philly's poverty, Teddy now embodied charisma with a voice that could melt hearts in a single phrase. But that blazing fame brought irresistible temptations. His life began spiraling into endless parties, hard liquor, and drugs. One late night in 1973, in the lavish haze of a Philadelphia party, he first tasted the rush of cocaine, a moment that made him feel invincible. But beneath his bold exterior, the echoes of his mother's old warnings about limits and downfall lingered. At the time, Teddy couldn't imagine that what seemed like a harmless choice would open a door to a bottomless abyss. As his fame soared, his relationship with Harold Melvin frayed daily. Teddy felt exploited, with most of the profits from packed shows going to others, while he, the stage's soul, received a meager cut. Frustrations smoldered, and by spring 1976, leaving the group became unavoidable. He craved freedom, to step out from the shadow that had loomed too long. But leaving wasn't easy. Harold reacted fiercely, threatening lawsuits and sowing doubts about Teddy's ability to succeed solo. Yet pride and resolve kept Teddy from backing down. In March 1977, he walked away, leaving the past behind and stepping into a new chapter, risky but resolute. At that point, a glamorous lifestyle swept him up like a whirlwind. Teddy was a regular at lavish parties, always surrounded by women and adulation. The image of the ladies' man became inseparable from his name. In early 1977, at a New York party, he met Karen Still, a captivating dancer with a confident air. Their relationship quickly deepened, and Karen became his partner through his most dazzling years. In April 1977, he entered Philadelphia International Records studio with burning determination. Fresh from leaving Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Teddy carried a hunger to prove his solo worth. His debut solo album, named after him, dropped in June, a wordless declaration of an artist writing his own story. Tracks like I Don't Love You Anymore and The Whole Town's Laughing at Me became instant hits, dominating radio airwaves. His warm, soul-bearing voice peeled back listeners' hearts, earning the album gold certification in no time from an unknown kid. Teddy rose to a Philly soul star, standing shoulder to shoulder with icons like Marvin Gaye and Al Green. Philadelphia went wild for Teddy. Every stage appearance sparked pandemonium. Women pushed to catch a glimpse, boldly tossing tokens of admiration onto the stage. In October 1977, he held a groundbreaking concert exclusively for women. Under dazzling lights, Teddy didn't just perform, he radiated physical and emotional allure, stirring thousands of hearts. Those women-only shows became a signature of his career, selling out in hours. But alongside the praise came fame's dark side. His reckless lifestyle deepened late-night parties, drugs as a familiar spice, and Teddy often waking in posh apartments next to strangers. Though guilt flickered at times, he lacked the clarity to stop. 1978 marked another leap in his soaring career. His album, Life is a Song Worth Singing, released in June, was a massive hit. The lead track, Close the Door, topped R&B charts, captivating listeners with its smooth sound and sultry lyrics. On stage, Teddy mesmerized crowds with smoldering looks and a voice like honey in their ears. The album went platinum, cementing his status as an irreplaceable icon of modern soul. But backstage, his personal life began to crack. Karen Still, whom he married in August 1977, soon realized her husband wasn't a one-woman man. Teddy didn't hide his wandering ways, even boldly claiming he didn't believe in commitment, though hurt. Karen stayed. 1978 also saw turmoil when 2 children were born out of wedlock with 2 other women, fueling media gossip. Tabloids dug into his private life, turning Teddy from a celebrated artist into a target of judgment. Karen quietly endured the whispers and scrutiny, as if accepting that loving someone like Teddy came with silent loneliness, despite personal struggles. His career kept soaring. In March 1979, the album Teddy arrived, further solidifying his place as one of the era's most captivating voices. Turn Off the Lights became an anthem, its seductive melody and bold lyrics thus standing out. Teddy wasn't just a star, he was a cultural phenomenon, yet the brighter his fame, the heavier the burden of stardom. Amid dazzling lights and applause, his sense of loneliness grew. One July night in 1979 at a raucous Los Angeles party, Teddy met Shep Gordon, a notorious manager with a wild lifestyle and tangled industry connections. That brief encounter kicked off a darker chapter. In a reckless bet, Teddy was swept into a 3-day cocaine binge. When it ended, he was nearly broken, lying motionless in a hotel room while Shep, sharp and calculating, stepped into the role of his new manager. What seemed like a joke reflected a stark truth: Teddy was losing control, and he knew it, but couldn't break free. In 1980, his career hit its peak. The album TP, released in May, delivered the timeless ballad Love TKO, a testament to a voice that could dissolve any barrier. Critics dubbed him the king of Philly soul, an icon of emotion and allure. But behind the glamour, his personal life grew messier. In November, at a Las Vegas party, Teddy was seen getting close with Janice Gay, Marvin Gaye's wife. Rumors spread like wildfire, the public buzzed, and industry whispers hinted at tension between the 2 R&B stars. Though Teddy brushed off the gossip, the incident cooled some industry relationships, and Karen, still quietly holding the family together, faced another cut to her heart. Early 1981 saw Teddy team up with Stephanie Mills for the duet Two Hearts Afire, emotional track released in April. Their vocal chemistry left audiences restless. Rumors of a romance flared, with some believing the song was their real-life love letter. Though Stephanie stayed quiet, calling Teddy a close friend, the ambiguity fueled media frenzy. One outlet even suggested Teddy might leave Karen for Stephanie, whether true or not. The rumors made Teddy's image hotter than ever while turning him into a target for criticism. Around the same time, another rumor simmered in Philadelphia that Teddy was involved with Kenneth Gamble's wife, the founder of Philadelphia International Records and a key figure in his career, if true. The fallout would be catastrophic. Gamble wasn't just influential, he was unforgiving, though Teddy neither confirmed nor denied it. The air between them grew tense. At a September press conference, Gamble's coldness was undeniable. Projects stalled, payments delayed. Teddy suspected retaliation, but his chaotic lifestyle left him too unsteady to confront it. The whirlwind was moving too fast. In January 1982, another wave hit. After a Philadelphia party, Teddy faced a sexual assault allegation. Though details were murky, the media pounced like vultures. Images of him in handcuffs splashed across papers. The case ultimately led to no conviction, but his reputation took a heavy hit. Some fans turned away. Colleagues once close kept their distance, smiling for cameras. Teddy hid exhaustion and mounting pressure. He drank more, used drugs more, as if trying to escape himself. Then a far worse tragedy struck on March 18, 1982, after an uncontrolled night of partying. Teddy drove his luxurious Rolls-Royce down Lincoln Drive. A drizzle made the road slick. The car lost control, crashing into two large trees. The impact roared like thunder. A day later, Teddy Pendergrass woke in the University of Pennsylvania Hospital's ICU, his mind foggy as if emerging from a dark dream, but reality was crueler than any nightmare. The spinal injury from the crash left him permanently paralyzed from the waist down. The man who'd electrified crowds with sultry moves and a captivating voice was now trapped in his own body. The hospital ceiling seemed to collapse around him, and the steady hum of machines only sharpened his pain. At the height of his career. At 32, Teddy faced a brutal truth: he might never return to the stage. The weeks that followed were a blur of physical and emotional paralysis. For 2 months, he lay motionless, his body broken, his mind shrouded in fog. Most friends were turned away. Karen. Still, the wife who'd endured his chaotic years stayed by his bedside daily. She tried to comfort him, but Teddy's gaze drifted to the window, empty and distant. He'd lived for music, for stage lights and adulation. Now, it was all stripped away, leaving a void nothing could fill. The physical pain paled beside the inner devastation, in secret. He turned to liquor small bottles hidden under his pillow, a fleeting escape from reality, but the haze only pulled him deeper into darkness. By June, criticism began to spread. The press dissected his tragedy. Many articles implying the crash stemmed from drug use, though no proof existed. The vicious chatter was a deep blow to his already wounded pride. Fans, once enamored, split into two camps. Some pitied, others scorned. Some dredged up old scandals, from the rumored affair with Gamble's wife to the unclear assault allegation, as if he were paying for his past. Bedridden, Teddy could only clench his fists, torn between anger, shame, and helplessness. Stephanie Mills was one of the few who remained close and genuine during that time. In July 1982, she visited the hospital, bringing a warm smile and memories of their shared stage triumphs like two hearts, which had fans believing they were a real couple. She reminded him of his worth, his voice that moved millions. Though Teddy showed little, her visits brought a faint light to his thick darkness. Stephanie kept coming, bringing old recordings, as if trying to rekindle the fading spark in the artist's soul. In October, Teddy began physical therapy. Each session was a relentless battle. He had to relearn how to live in a body no longer his, sitting up, navigating a wheelchair, facing pitying stares. But what hurt most was the shattering of his identity. The man who'd strode stages like a god now saw a stranger in the mirror. Worn and faded, one late November night, in the silence. Teddy faced a chilling thought of ending it all, in that moment. His mother Ida's image flashed like a lighthouse in a storm. The woman who'd sacrificed her life for him became the only reason he clung to life. He smashed a liquor bottle against the wall, letting tears fall for the first time since the crash. By 1983, Teddy slowly regained some control. In March, a year after the crash, he left the hospital for a suburban Philadelphia home. Karen and their children stayed close, but the house felt heavy with distance. Their already shaky marriage grew tenser. His wounded pride made him irritable. He felt like a burden. Friends tried to pull him back into life's vibrancy, but Teddy, mired in depression, often refused. He didn't want anyone seeing him so fragile, so breakable, so unlike himself. In September, more trouble hit. This time, it came from the place that had once lifted him, Philadelphia International Records. Teddy discovered they hadn't fully paid royalties from his old hits. With manager Shep Gordon's help, he sued a move that severed his bond with Kenneth Gamble completely. He couldn't shake the feeling that past personal grudges, especially the rumored affair with Gamble's wife, still smoldered. The lawsuit dragged into early 1984, with Teddy winning a substantial settlement, but victory brought no relief. Instead, he felt loss. Philadelphia International, once a second home, became a painful chapter in his memory. He left it behind, signing with Elektra Records, hoping to rebuild his career from the ashes. In May 1984, Teddy stunned the world by announcing his return to the studio. Love Language, released in August, marked a new chapter. Hold Me, featuring Whitney Houston's backing vocals, was an unexpected highlight, breathing fresh air amid doubts, recording from a wheelchair. Teddy retained his powerful, emotive voice. He knew the old glory was hard to reclaim, but he didn't care. He wanted to prove he still existed, still sang, despite the prejudice. On July 13, 1985, Teddy left the world speechless at Philadelphia's Live Aid. Wheeled onto the stage with Ashford and Simpson, he silenced tens of thousands. When his voice rose with Reach Out and Touch, the arena erupted, though not as commanding as his peak. His singing pulsed with life, tears flowed, applause thundered, sweat beaded on his brow, and the artist's fire in his heart reignited. But that fleeting brilliance couldn't erase the harsh reality. Back home, he faced a body breaking down, chronic pain, and a growing emptiness. The road ahead was tougher than ever. At the same time, cracks in his personal life widened. After years of holding strong, Karen grew exhausted. In October 1985, their relationship hit a breaking point. She felt she was living with a man chained to his past. Their marriage, shaky since his days as a heartthrob, teetered on collapse. Meanwhile, rumors spread among peers. Former allies now turned away. Some said Teddy had changed, become withdrawn, even arrogant. He didn't argue. The walls he'd built to shield his pain had isolated him. In early 1986, Teddy clung to what light remained. The Live Aid performance's echo fueled hope, but his ravaged body fought every effort. Chronic pain haunted his nights, reminding him he was no longer the stage conqueror. In March, his marriage with Karen ended. She filed for divorce, confiding to friends that love lingered, but she couldn't live in his past's shadow. Teddy understood. Too much hurt had piled up, from past affairs to endless post-crash depression. In May, he signed the divorce papers, feeling a piece of his soul slip away. After those dark days, Joan Pendergrass entered his life, a former dancer who'd admired Teddy since his Uptown Theater days. Joan met him again at a Philadelphia charity event in July 1986. Before her stood not a dazzling star, but a wounded man with an undeniable pull. Joan approached with gentleness and strength. She saw potential buried under pain and despair. Teddy, initially guarded, slowly opened up to her sincerity. By December, they were dating. Joan became his anchor, helping him navigate a broken body from managing schedules to facing lingering pain. In April 1987, they married in a quiet suburban Philadelphia ceremony. It felt like a chance to start anew. Joan, with her energy and resolve, became his unofficial manager. She handled recording schedules, label communications, and tried to keep Teddy from silent depression. But not everyone welcomed their bond. Teddy's children, especially LaDonna, were skeptical. Some believed Joan was too controlling, exploiting Teddy's state to secure her place. Though he heard the whispers, Teddy chose trust. He needed Joan, someone who saw him not as a burden, but as an artist with something left to give. Though no longer at his peak, Teddy's career carried on uniquely. In June 1988, he released Joy, its upbeat title track blending optimism and emotional depth. Climbing R&B charts, his voice moved listeners. The public marveled at the comeback of an artist once on the brink. But backstage, Teddy faced another wave of scrutiny. At a New York music event, he declined a collaboration with a rising young singer. The artist, eager for recognition, publicly criticized Teddy in the press, claiming he refused to share the spotlight. The news spread, dividing fans. Some defended Teddy, citing his health and personal needs. Others saw him as closed off, no longer open as before. In truth, Teddy was exhausted. He didn't want to represent anyone or carry more expectations. Meanwhile, his relationship with Joan grew strained. By 1989, she controlled much of his life finances, schedules, even who could see him. One March night, LaDonna visited her father and found her time limited, as if she'd become a stranger. The quiet coldness sowed distrust among Teddy's kids, who feared Joan was pushing them out. Though he couldn't deny the shifting family dynamic, Teddy clung to the woman who'd stood by him through his darkest years. He believed she deserved his trust, but even that couldn't stop the cracks from spreading. In 1991, he tried to spark hope again. Truly Blessed, released in April, was deeply personal, a space for Teddy to pour out pain, loss, and the faith left after the storm. Though sales were modest, loyal fans embraced it. A July Chicago performance was a standout moment. As Teddy appeared, the room rose in endless applause. His voice, marked by time and illness, still touched hearts. By February 1992, another conflict arose in the music world. Teddy declined an invite to a Philly soul tribute event. His reason was simple: he didn't want to be seen as a living relic, valued only for his past. The stance ignited debate. Some artists, working to revive classic soul, felt insulted. To them. Teddy was an icon. His refusal disappointed them. By 1993, Teddy's health visibly worsened. An August urinary tract infection forced him to cancel a string of shows. In this fragile phase, Joan, his devoted wife and manager, became central to every decision, but her deep involvement strained family ties further. LaDonna and her siblings openly voiced frustration, believing Joan was overly controlling, even cutting their access to Teddy. He was torn. He needed his kids, but couldn't do without the woman who'd been his rock. To him, Joan was a lifeline through the worst years. But that bond unintentionally widened the gap with his own flesh and blood. In 1998, Teddy released This One's For You, a stubborn effort to hold on to his fading musical passion, though it didn't shake the market. Tracks like I'm Always Thinking About You touched longtime fans. Every recording was a battle against pain, dwindling strength, and nostalgia for a golden era gone. But Teddy pressed on. Music wasn't just passion, it was his reason to exist. Without it, he'd have fallen long ago. 4 quiet years passed without major upheaval. It seemed peace might finally settle in. But in February 2002, Teddy faced an irreparable loss. His mother, Ida Geraldine Epps, died. The woman who'd raised, protected, and been his sole emotional anchor since childhood was gone. Her death plunged Teddy into another dark spiral. He withdrew into shadows, escaping with liquor. Joan tried to pull him from the abyss, but even her love couldn't soothe the deep pain he carried. He began questioning his purpose, as if his life was a vague atonement for an unknown sin. That feeling, elusive but fierce, tore at him daily. In September 2009, the greatest blow hit when Teddy was diagnosed with late-stage colon cancer. His already weakened body, ravaged by years of paralysis, made October's surgery grueling. Joan stayed by his side, clinging to faint hope, but post-surgery complications drained his fading strength. Infections returned. Breathing grew harder. In November, he was hospitalized again. Critical. Doctors warned Joan the situation was dire. On his hospital bed, Teddy didn't fear death, but was haunted by leaving things unfinished, without goodbyes. His final months were strained by unresolved family rifts. LaDonna and her siblings visited often, but felt sidelined by Joan's tight control. Some family believed she was keeping Teddy to herself, fearing loss of influence in his final days. Teddy lacked the strength to mediate. By December, he drifted in and out of consciousness, his mind replaying images his gentle mother, the little church, the stage's blazing lights. Death was near. On the night of January 13th, around 8 p.m., the light in his eyes faded. Teddy stopped breathing, and despite doctors' efforts, they couldn't hold him back. Joan watched the husband she'd stood by through pain and hope take his final breath. Teddy Pendergrass, the soulful voice that shook millions of hearts, passed at 59. The news spread quickly across the city, but beneath the public's mourning, a dark undercurrent stirred within the family. Just 2 days later, before Teddy's body was laid to rest, fierce family disputes erupted publicly. LaDonna, his eldest daughter, accused Joan of controlling everything in his final years and blocking family access. She suspected the will was forged, believing Joan aimed to seize Teddy's substantial estate. Some siblings, though quieter, agreed. They felt Joan, once a caretaker, had become the gatekeeper of his legacy from music rights to properties. Joan stayed silent, speaking only through lawyers, insisting her actions stemmed from love and duty. But that didn't quell the anger. By February 2010, LaDonna filed a lawsuit, demanding an investigation into the will's legitimacy. The dispute dragged on for years, a tear in the legacy of an icon that cast a heavy shadow after his death. A twist came in November that year when LaDonna's lawyers revealed documents showing Joan had transferred a large sum from Teddy's account to her own before his death. Though not enough to prove fraud, the finding further split public opinion. Many defended Joan, highlighting her silent sacrifices. Others sided with Teddy's kids, believing he was exploited at his weakest. By September 2012, after years of battling, the court issued a final ruling. Teddy's will was deemed valid, but royalties from his old albums were redistributed to his children. Joan kept most of the real estate, but saw her reputation tarnished. She felt betrayed, believing her efforts to preserve Teddy's legacy went unrecognized for LaDonna. The partial victory brought no peace. The family rift became irreparable. Teddy's children rarely spoke to Joan, leaving a cold, unbridgeable gap. Soon after, the documentary Teddy Pendergrass, If You Don't Know Me, premiered on Showtime. Offering a full view of his life from South Philly's poverty to Philly Soul's peak, and the 1982 crash that changed everything. Old friends like Stephanie Mills, Patti LaBelle, and manager Shep Gordon shared emotional memories. The film reignited fans' love, with songs like Close the Door and Joy climbing streaming charts. A new generation discovered Teddy, unearthing a bygone era. No one mentioned the legal battles or stormy past. In that moment, only the music remained the force that made a man an immortal Philly soul icon.